It was the early 1960s. Across Europe, Ferrari was building machines that looked like rolling works of art. On racetracks from Monza to Le Mans, the prancing horse had become the symbol of speed, prestige, and engineering perfection. Every curve was sculpted by wind tunnels and racing heritage. Every mechanical component reflected decades of motorsport obsession. These weren't simply automobiles. They were statements of engineering philosophy, handcrafted expressions of velocity, wrapped in gorgeous Italian bodywork that made grown men stop mid-conversation just to stare. Meanwhile, back in America, Pontiac had a very different reputation. It built reliable family cars, comfortable cruisers, and affordable performance machines for everyday people. Pontiac was where middle-class families went when they wanted something slightly more exciting than a Chevrolet, but couldn't justify the luxury premium of a Cadillac. The brand occupied a peculiar middle ground in General Motors' hierarchy, respectable but rarely exciting, competent but seldom revolutionary. But what almost nobody knows is that hidden inside Pontiac's engineering department was an engine powerful enough to challenge some of the world's finest V8s. An engine born from racing ambition, developed in secrecy, and tested to destruction repeatedly until every weakness had been identified and eliminated. An engine that terrified rivals before most people even knew it existed. And then, instead of placing it inside an exotic sports car or even a purpose-built racing machine, Pontiac quietly stuffed it into one of the least exciting vehicles imaginable, a station wagon. Not a lightweight two-seater, not a sleek coupe with racing pedigree, a genuine wood-paneled, three-row family station wagon designed to haul children, groceries, camping equipment, and everything else suburban American life demanded in the 1960s. You think you know Pontiac's muscle car history? Not like this. The story begins in 1959, when Pontiac was transforming from one of General Motors' most conservative divisions into its performance leader. The man behind that revolution was Chief Engineer John DeLorean, an ambitious executive who understood that corporate success in the 1960s wouldn't come from building better refrigerators on wheels. It would come from building excitement. Working alongside engineers like Malcolm McKellar and a talented group of specialists determined to prove that Pontiac could build more than comfortable transportation, DeLorean began reshaping the division's entire identity. Their first success had already shocked Detroit. The 389 cubic inch V8 powered the new GTO concept and demonstrated that American buyers wanted performance, especially when it came packaged in affordable, accessible vehicles that didn't require exotic car maintenance or specialized mechanical knowledge. Middle-class Americans could suddenly afford genuine speed, but inside Pontiac engineering, they were already thinking much bigger. They wanted an engine that could dominate NASCAR's superspeedways, conquer drag strips from coast to coast, and embarrass European sports cars in straight-line acceleration. They wanted something that would make Ferrari engineers uncomfortable. They wanted to prove that American displacement could rival European sophistication, that cubic inches and raw torque represented a valid engineering philosophy, not just brute force ignorance. The result would become one of the most fascinating engines General Motors ever approved, even if corporate executives didn't fully understand what they had authorized. The Pontiac 421 Super Duty. At first glance, the numbers looked familiar to anyone who understood American V8 architecture. The block still belonged to Pontiac's traditional V8 family, sharing basic architecture with more pedestrian engines. It retained a 4.09-inch bore, but engineers stretched the stroke to 4.00 inches, creating exactly 421 cubic inches of displacement. That combination produced an engine with nearly square dimensions, an architecture that historically balanced high RPM capability with strong low-end torque. Compression ratios range from 10.75, 1 on some street versions, to nearly 1 1 on competition engines designed to run on premium fuel and careful tuning. Depending on configuration, factory horsepower range from 370 to 405 horsepower. But those numbers barely hinted at reality. Everyone knew Detroit underestimated horsepower during the muscle car era. Insurance companies were watching, ready to punish manufacturers who openly advertised dangerous performance. Racing organizations were watching, prepared to regulate engines that became too dominant. GM executives were watching, nervous about liability and public perception, so engineers learned to be creative with their numbers. On the dyno, race-prepared 421 Super Duty engines regularly exceeded 500 horsepower. Some specialists believe the most aggressive drag race combinations approached 550 horsepower with dual Carter AFB 4-barrel carburetors, long tube headers, aggressive camshaft profiles, and careful tuning that squeezed every possible horsepower from the combination. That kind of power didn't simply make cars fast. It destroyed transmissions, shattered rear axles, twisted drive shafts into pretzels. The weakest component in the drivetrain would fail first, and engineers spent countless hours strengthening everything downstream from the crankshaft just to handle the violence those pistons created. But there was something even more impressive than raw horsepower: torque. Peak torque officially measured around 460 lb-f, arriving just above 3,000 revolutions per minute. That meant brutal acceleration almost anywhere in the rev range. Unlike high-strung European engines that required aggressive downshifting and high RPM to access their power, the Pontiac delivered massive thrust almost immediately. Drivers described it as feeling like an invisible giant pushing the car forward with both hands, a relentless surge of acceleration that seemed to defy the vehicle's substantial weight. And that was exactly what Pontiac wanted. American roads weren't filled with tight European corners. They were long, straight highways where sustained acceleration mattered more than knife-edge handling. The 421 Super Duty was engineered for American reality. Yet building enormous power wasn't the hard part. Keeping it alive was. High RPM testing quickly exposed weaknesses that seemed minor on paper but became catastrophic under sustained abuse. Bearings overheated during extended dynamometer sessions. Oil temperatures climbed relentlessly during endurance testing, breaking down lubrication and creating metal-to-metal contact. Connecting rods experienced tremendous loads every time those massive pistons changed direction at over 6,000 revolutions per minute, loads that accumulated over thousands of cycles until fatigue cracks appeared. Mechanics recalled opening oil pans after durability sessions and finding tiny metallic flakes glittering in the oil like silver dust. Evidence that something inside was slowly destroying itself. Every flake represented expensive damage, components grinding against each other in ways that would eventually lead to catastrophic failure. One engineer reportedly joked, "We're making horsepower faster than we're making reliable engines." So Pontiac engineers went back to work, approaching the problem systematically. They strengthened the forged steel crankshaft, increasing journal diameters and improving material quality. Heavy-duty forged connecting rods replaced weaker production components that could handle the violent loads without stretching or failing. The block received reinforced main bearing webs, improving rigidity under extreme loads and preventing the crankshaft from flexing. Large valve cylinder heads dramatically improved airflow, allowing the engine to breathe efficiently even at high RPM, while revised oil passages ensured better lubrication under sustained high-speed operation, keeping critical components bathed in fresh oil even during extended racing. Nothing revolutionary by itself, but together, those improvements transformed the engine into something extraordinary, an engine that could sustain power outputs that would have destroyed earlier designs. Then came induction. Single 4-barrel carburetors were already impressive, flowing enough air to support over 400 horsepower. But Pontiac offered dual Carter AFB 4 barrels sitting proudly atop an aluminum intake manifold, a setup that looked aggressive even sitting still. Combined airflow exceeded 1,000 cubic feet per minute, allowing the big V8 to breathe freely well past 6,000 revolutions per minute. The sound of both carburetors opening simultaneously became legendary, a mechanical roar that announced serious intent. You could probably guess what happened next, but the truth was even crazier. The 421 Super Duty began humiliating competitors across America, often in unexpected ways. At NHRA drag strips during 1962 and 1963, lightweight Pontiac Catalinas, equipped with Super Duty engines, became feared opponents. Drivers like Arnie the Farmer Beswick, turned Pontiacs into crowd favorites, building dedicated racing machines that embarrassed purpose-built competition. While Royal Pontiac and other performance dealers extracted astonishing performance from factory-backed combinations, often with quiet support from Pontiac engineers who officially weren't involved in racing anymore. Quarter-mile times dropped into the low 12-second range for street-legal combinations. Some highly modified cars even flirted with the 11-second bracket at over 120 miles per hour, performance that seemed impossible for full-size American sedans. Remember, this was the early 1960s, when 14-second quarter miles were considered quick and most family cars struggled to break 100 miles per hour. Many European sports cars costing twice as much struggled to keep up with these Pontiacs in straight-line acceleration. Ferrari's legendary 250 GTE, powered by its magnificent 3.0-liter Colombo V12, produced around 240 horsepower. It reached 60 miles per hour in roughly 7 seconds and topped out near 145 miles per hour. The engine sang beautifully, revving freely past 7,000 revolutions per minute with a mechanical symphony that represented decades of racing heritage. Beautiful, sophisticated, engineered with precision that American manufacturers rarely approached. But in a straight line, the Pontiac could simply disappear, its massive torque advantage overwhelming any technical sophistication Ferrari offered. Launching from a stoplight wasn't graceful, refined, or sophisticated. It was violent, immediate, and utterly devastating. Yet Pontiac wasn't chasing Ferrari only on the street. Engineers wanted international credibility, the kind of respect that came from endurance racing and road course success. They wanted to prove that American engineering could succeed beyond drag strips. They wanted endurance records and racing victories that would silence critics who dismissed Detroit as unsophisticated. Unfortunately, corporate politics stood directly in their way. Everything changed in 1963. General Motors officially withdrew from factory-backed racing after mounting political pressure and growing public concern about high-performance automobiles. The Automobile Manufacturers Association had established guidelines discouraging racing involvement, and GM's leadership decided compliance was more important than performance credibility. The corporate racing ban forced every GM division to publicly step away from motorsports, cutting ties with racing teams and ending official performance development programs. For Pontiac engineers, it felt devastating. Years of development suddenly had nowhere to go. Engines designed for racing competition would never compete officially. The Super Duty program, which had consumed countless engineering hours and substantial budget, was effectively frozen. Only a relatively small number of genuine factory 421 Super Duty engines were produced before the program ended. Historians generally estimate fewer than 600 complete Super Duty packages were built across 1962 and 1963, making surviving examples extraordinarily valuable today. Many were sold through dealer networks to private racing teams, quietly continuing Pontiac's performance legacy even without official factory support. And then the real surprise arrived. Instead of disappearing entirely, the engine quietly found another home. Pontiac continued producing regular 421 high-output versions, slightly detuned but still immensely powerful. These engines sacrificed some racing pedigree for improved reliability and streetability. Buyers could order them in full-size Catalinas, Bonnevilles, and even Star Chief models. And yes, even station wagons. Imagine pulling into a grocery store in 1964. Next to you sits a long Pontiac safari wagon loaded with groceries, kids' bicycles, and picnic supplies. Maybe there's a cooler in the back, fishing rods strapped to the roof, everything suggesting a peaceful family weekend. Wood grain trim running down the sides, huge cargo area capable of swallowing luggage for 6, comfortable bench seats upholstered in practical vinyl, completely ordinary, utterly unremarkable. Except beneath that massive hood sat over 7 liters of American V8 muscle capable of embarrassing Corvettes, Jaguars, and many Ferraris in stoplight sprints. Nobody expected the family wagon to be the fastest vehicle leaving the parking lot. Soccer moms weren't supposed to smoke sports cars on highway on-ramps. That's exactly what made it so dangerous. Pontiac had accidentally created one of America's greatest sleepers, a vehicle that looked completely innocent while harboring genuine performance capability. Most people don't realize how advanced the engineering remained even after the racing ban. Lodged 2.11-inch intake valves and 1.77-inch exhaust valves improved breathing dramatically compared to standard engines. High-lift camshafts kept valves open longer, allowing greater cylinder filling and improved volumetric efficiency. Forged pistons tolerated high compression and sustained abuse that would crack cast pistons. Massive journal bearings distributed loads across larger surfaces, improving durability during repeated acceleration. Every specification reflected racing DNA, even if corporate policy insisted otherwise. Fuel consumption naturally bordered on absurd. Under aggressive driving, owners sometimes reported fewer than 10 miles per gallon, numbers that made practical transportation expensive. Highway cruising improved economy slightly, but the 421's massive displacement and performance-oriented tuning meant efficiency was never a priority. But nobody buying a 421 cared about fuel economy. They cared about one thing: power. And power came instantly, without hesitation, without drama, just relentless forward thrust. Magazine road tests praised the engine's effortless acceleration. Contemporary testing placed full-size Pontiacs with the 421 comfortably below 7 seconds from 0 to 60. Some lighter configurations dipped into the 6-second range, remarkable performance for large American sedans weighing over 2 tons. The acceleration felt even more impressive from the driver's seat, where the combination of mass and power created a sensation unlike smaller, lighter vehicles. Top speed often exceeded 130 miles per hour when gearing allowed, though aerodynamics limited ultimate velocity. Again, family cars, not dedicated sports cars or racing machines. Meanwhile, across Europe, Ferrari continued refining lightweight V12 machines, emphasizing balance, precision, and high RPM performance. Their engineering philosophy prioritized sophistication, using advanced materials and careful design to extract maximum performance from moderate displacement. Pontiac took the opposite approach. More displacement, more torque, more brute force. Two completely different engineering philosophies chasing the same goal: maximum speed. But regulations, emissions requirements, and changing public attitudes slowly began reshaping the automotive industry. Higher insurance premiums punished buyers of high-performance cars, particularly young drivers. The federal government introduced increasingly strict emission standards that made high-compression engines problematic. Lower compression engines became necessary to survive unleaded fuel and tightening regulations. The performance wars gradually lost momentum as practical concerns overwhelmed pure speed. Pontiac eventually retired the mighty 421 after the 1966 model year, replacing it with the new 428 cubic-inch V8. Although the newer engine offered excellent performance and improved reliability, many enthusiasts believed some of the raw racing spirit had disappeared. The original Super Duty era was over, replaced by engines designed more for street performance than racing domination. Yet its legend only continued growing. Today, authentic 421 Super Duty cars command astonishing prices at collector auctions, sometimes exceeding 6 figures for well-documented examples. Rare engine components sell for thousands of dollars individually. Original aluminum intake manifolds, forged internals, and factory cylinder heads are prized by restorers around the world, often worth more than complete common engines. Collectors aren't simply buying horsepower, they're buying one of the last engines created before corporate politics rewrote Detroit's future. Even modern builders continue recreating these legendary combinations, with improved machining tolerances, stronger aftermarket materials, roller camshafts, and modern ignition systems. Carefully assembled 421-based engines can comfortably exceed 600 naturally aspirated horsepower while remaining far more reliable than their 1960s ancestors. Modern metallurgy and computer-aided design have solved problems that plagued original engineers. The design still has something to say. That's remarkable for an engine conceived more than 60 years ago. So why does this story matter? because it reminds us that automotive history isn't always written by the loudest machines or the most obvious performance cars. Sometimes the greatest engineering achievements spend decades hiding in plain sight, overlooked because they appeared in unexpected places. The Pontiac 421 Super Duty wasn't just another big block V8. It represented an era when American engineers believed displacement could challenge sophistication, when a family car division quietly built an engine capable of standing beside Europe's finest, when racing innovation somehow found its way beneath the hood of a station wagon designed to carry camping gear. That contrast is exactly what makes it unforgettable. It wasn't supposed to beat exotic sports cars. It certainly wasn't supposed to carry camping gear while doing it. And yet, for a brief moment in history, Pontiac built an engine with Ferrari-sized ambition, then quietly hid it where almost nobody would think to look. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Detroit's greatest hidden performance legends, let me know in the comments which forgotten engine you want to explore next. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next incredible story from automotive history might be hiding under the hood of the last car you'd ever expect.